Sheriff Tom Whitmore never imagined that September evening would be the last normal day of his life. He'd been sheriff of Millbrook County for 23 years, long enough to know every back road and most families by name. That Tuesday started like any other. He drank his coffee black, kissed his daughter Katie goodbye as she rushed out the door with her volleyball bag and headed to the station. Katie was 17, a senior at Millbrook High School. She had her mother's smile and her father's stubborn determination. Straight A student, captain of the volleyball team, already accepted to 3 universities. Tom's wife had passed away from cancer 4 years earlier, so it had been just the two of them ever since. Katie was his whole world, though he'd never been the type to say it out loud. He showed it in other ways. Never missed a game. Always made sure dinner was on the table, even if it was just takeout. Let her blast her music in the car, even though it gave him a headache. That afternoon, around 4:30, Tom was reviewing incident reports when his desk phone rang. It was Coach Henderson from the high school. The panic in her voice made his stomach drop before she even finished her first sentence. "Sheriff, you need to get to the hospital right now. It's Katie." He didn't remember the drive to Millbrook General. One moment he was grabbing his keys. The next he was running through the automatic doors of the emergency room. A nurse intercepted him in the hallway, her hand on his arm, her voice gentle but urgent. Katie had collapsed during practice. One second she was going up for a spike, the next she was on the gym floor. At first, Coach Henderson thought she'd just overheated, but then Katie started shaking, her whole body convulsing. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was barely responsive. Tom found his daughter in Trauma Bay 3. She looked so small on that hospital bed, surrounded by machines and medical staff. Her eyes were half open but unfocused. A breathing tube had been placed down her throat. Wires connected her to monitors that beeped and flashed with numbers Tom couldn't understand. Dr. Patricia Mills, the ER physician, pulled him aside. She was a woman in her 50s who Tom had known for years. She didn't sugarcoat things. "Tom, Katie has a brain bleed. A hemorrhage. It's serious and it's progressing fast. We've done a CT scan and the bleeding is extensive. She needs surgery immediately or—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Where's your neurosurgeon?" Tom asked, his voice sounding strange in his own ears. "Dr. Peterson is in surgery with another critical patient, a car accident victim. He's been in there for 2 hours and he's got at least another hour to go. We can't pull him out." Tom felt the floor tilt beneath him. "So what do we do?" "We've already made calls. There's a neurosurgeon in Oak Ridge, about 30 miles from here, Dr. James Crawford. He's supposed to be one of the best. Trained at Johns Hopkins, worked at major hospitals in Philadelphia before moving out here 6 months ago. He's on his way." Tom nodded, trying to process the information. 30 miles. In good traffic, that was 30, maybe 35 minutes. He looked at his daughter, at the monitors showing her vital signs. Every minute counted. "How long does she have?" he asked quietly. Dr. Mills met his eyes. "With a bleed like this, every minute matters. The longer the blood puts pressure on her brain, the more damage it causes. If we can get her into surgery within the hour, her chances are good. After that," she paused. "After that, the odds drop significantly." Tom walked back to Katie's bedside. He took her hand, careful of the IV line. Her skin felt cold. He'd held this hand when she took her first steps, when she got scared during thunderstorms, when they buried her mother. Now he held it and prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. The ER was chaos around him. Nurses checked monitors, adjusted equipment, prepped surgical supplies. Dr. Mills was on the phone with someone, her voice tense. Minutes crawled by like hours. Tom's radio crackled. It was dispatch. He almost didn't answer, but instinct made him reach for it. "Sheriff, we've got a situation on Highway 47. Deputy Hastings made a traffic stop. Driver is claiming to be a doctor heading to the hospital for an emergency. Hastings is requesting guidance on verification." Tom's mind was too focused on Katie to process the significance of this. "Tell Hastings to run the license and let dispatch verify. We don't have time for games tonight." "Copy that, Sheriff." He turned the radio off and focused back on his daughter. A nurse was adjusting the ventilator settings. Katie's breathing was being done by machine now. Her chest rose and fell mechanically. "How long has it been?" Tom asked. The nurse checked her watch. 22 minutes since we called Dr. Crawford. 22 minutes. He should be more than halfway here by now. Tom felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe this doctor would arrive in time. Maybe Katie would get her surgery and wake up and complain about missing volleyball practice. Dr. Mills came back over, her face troubled. Tom, I need to be honest with you. This is a significant hemorrhage. Even with immediate surgery, there's a chance of lasting damage. Memory problems, motor function issues, personality changes, and if we can't get her into surgery soon. I understand, Tom said, though he didn't, not really. How could anyone understand their child being in this position? More minutes passed. The clock on the wall seemed to be moving in slow motion. 25 minutes since the call, 27:30. Where is he? Tom asked. Dr. Mills checked her phone. He should be here by now. Let me call him. She dialed, waited. It's going to voicemail. A cold feeling spread through Tom's chest. Try again, she did. Voicemail again, 35 minutes. The monitors around Katie started showing changes. Her blood pressure was dropping. Her heart rate was climbing. She's deteriorating, a nurse said urgently. We need that surgeon now. Dr. Mills was on the phone with someone else now. Yes, this is Dr. Mills at Millbrook General. We have a critical patient who needs immediate neurosurgical intervention. Our local surgeon is unavailable and our backup hasn't arrived. Yes, she's 17. Brain hemorrhage, extensive rapid progression. Tom watched his daughter's face. She looked peaceful, almost like she was sleeping. But the machines told a different story. They told the story of a young girl whose brain was being crushed by blood and pressure, whose life was slipping away minute by minute. 40 minutes since the call. Where was this doctor? Had he been in an accident? Had he gotten lost? Tom's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. He thought about Katie's college application sitting on the kitchen table. Her plans to become a civil rights lawyer like Thurgood Marshall. The way she'd talked his ear off last week about some case she'd read about in her government class. She wanted to change the world. She wanted to make things fair for people who'd been treated unfairly. And now she was lying here, her dreams and plans and bright future all hanging on whether a doctor Tom had never met could get to the hospital in time. 45 minutes. Dr. Mills was looking more worried by the second. We're running out of time, Tom. I'm going to see if we can get a medical helicopter to transport her to the regional trauma center. But even that will take at least 40 minutes. And I don't know if she has that long. Tom's radio crackled again. He'd forgotten he had it on. Sheriff Deputy Hastings has released the traffic stop subject. Verification confirmed identity as Dr. James Crawford, neurosurgeon. Subject is proceeding to Millbrook General. The words hit Tom like a physical blow. Traffic stop released. His deputy had stopped the surgeon. His deputy had delayed the man who was supposed to save his daughter's life. He looked at the clock. 50 minutes since the initial call. 50 minutes of Katie's brain being damaged. 50 minutes that might have cost her everything. And somewhere on Highway 47, the man who could have saved her was just now being allowed to continue his journey. Dr. James Crawford had saved 317 lives. He kept count not out of pride, but as a reminder of why he'd spent 12 years in medical school and residency, why he'd sacrificed relationships and sleep and a normal life. Every number represented a person who got to go home, to hug their family, to have a future. Tonight he was racing to save number 318. The call had come through at 4:45. A 17-year-old girl with a rapidly progressing brain hemorrhage. Time was critical. Dr. Crawford had been at home in Oak Ridge just finishing dinner when his phone rang. He listened to the details, asked the right questions, and was out the door within 3 minutes. He was good at his job. Maybe the best, though he'd never say it that way. He'd trained under the top neurosurgeons on the East Coast, worked at Philadelphia General for 8 years, handled cases other doctors wouldn't touch. But the pressure had gotten to him. The city, the politics, the constant grind. So 6 months ago he'd moved to Oak Ridge, a quiet town where he could practice medicine without the chaos. Except chaos had a way of finding you. He grabbed his medical bag, the one that went everywhere with him. Inside were the tools he might need, though the hospital would have everything prepared. He checked his phone one more time, reviewing the scans they'd sent. The bleed was bad, really bad, but if he could get there in 30 minutes, he could save this girl. Dr. Crawford got into his car, a black sedan he'd bought used, but kept immaculate. He programmed the hospital into his GPS even though he knew the way. Then he did something he rarely did. He turned on his emergency flashers and started driving fast, not reckless. He was a surgeon. He understood the value of precision, but fast enough to make a difference. The speed limit on Highway 47 was 65. He pushed it to 78. Enough to shave precious minutes off the journey without being dangerous. The road was mostly empty. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. It would have been beautiful if he'd had time to notice. Instead, his mind was running through the surgery he'd need to perform. The approach, the technique, the potential complications. He'd done this operation dozens of times, but every patient was different. Every brain was unique. His phone was mounted on the dashboard showing the route. 12 minutes to destination. He'd make it with time to spare. This girl would be okay. He'd make sure of it. That's when he saw the flashing lights in his rearview mirror. For a moment, Dr. Crawford thought the police car was responding to another call. But no, it was clearly signaling him to pull over. He glanced at his speedometer. 78 in a 65. Not ideal, but this was an emergency. He slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder. The police car followed. Dr. Crawford turned off his emergency flashers and rolled down his window. His medical bag was on the passenger seat. His hospital ID badge was clipped to his belt. The deputy who approached his car was young, maybe late 20s, tall, with a military-style haircut and mirror sunglasses even though the sun was nearly down. His name tag read Hastings. License and registration, Deputy Hastings said without preamble. Officer, I'm Dr. James Crawford. I'm a neurosurgeon and I'm responding to a medical emergency at Millbrook General Hospital. There's a 17-year-old girl who needs immediate surgery. Every minute counts. Dr. Crawford reached for his wallet slowly, keeping his hands visible. He'd learned that lesson a long time ago. He pulled out his license and his medical credentials, handing them over. Deputy Hastings looked at the cards, then at Dr. Crawford, then back at the cards. His expression didn't change. You were going 78 in a 65, he said. Yes, sir, I understand. But I'm a surgeon responding to an emergency. I have my emergency flashers on. If you need to verify, you can call Millbrook General and ask for Dr. Patricia Mills in the emergency room. She's expecting me. Step out of the vehicle. Dr. Crawford felt his stomach sink. Officer, please. There's a girl dying. If I don't get there in the next 15 minutes, she might not make it. I'm not trying to get out of a ticket. Write me the ticket, I'll pay it. But please let me go. Step out of the vehicle now. The deputy's hand had moved to his belt, resting on his gun. Dr. Crawford knew that gesture. He'd seen it before, more times than he could count. He'd seen it during traffic stops in Philadelphia. He'd seen it when he was walking to his car in a parking garage. He'd seen it when he was trying to enter his own apartment building because a neighbor didn't recognize him. He stepped out of the car. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. Officer Hastings, please listen to me. I'm a doctor. I'm trying to save a child's life. You can verify everything I'm saying. Call the hospital. Call anyone. But please let me go. You match the description of a vehicle theft suspect from 2 counties over, Deputy Hastings said. Black sedan, out of county plates. I need to verify your identity and check that this vehicle isn't stolen. Dr. Crawford felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't about speeding. This wasn't about a stolen car. This was about something else entirely, something he'd dealt with his whole life. My information is on my license. The car is registered in my name. Everything checks out. Please, just run it quickly. A girl is dying. Deputy Hastings didn't respond. He was already on his radio, calling for backup. Dr. Crawford looked at his watch. 5 minutes had passed since he'd been pulled over. 5 minutes that Katie didn't have to spare. He tried to stay calm, tried to think rationally. This was a misunderstanding. The deputy would run his information, see that everything was legitimate, and let him go. Maybe 10 minutes total. He could still make it, but then another police car arrived. A female deputy stepped out, younger than Hastings, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her name tag read Kramer. What have we got? She asked. Possible vehicle theft. Driver claims to be a doctor heading to an emergency, but the story doesn't check out. Out of county plates, expensive car, driving way over the speed limit. Dr. Crawford turned to face them, his hands still on the vehicle. Deputy Kramer, please. My name is Dr. James Crawford. I'm a neurosurgeon. Millbrook General Hospital called me 40 minutes ago about a patient with a brain hemorrhage. She's 17 years old. If I don't operate on her soon, she will die or suffer permanent brain damage. You can verify everything I'm saying with one phone call. Deputy Kramer looked at him, then at Hastings. Did you run his license? Waiting on it now. System slow tonight. Slow. The word felt like a punch. Dr. Crawford knew the system wasn't slow. He'd been through enough traffic stops to know that license checks took 3, maybe 5 minutes tops. But these deputies weren't in a hurry. Please, he said again. I'm begging you. Call the hospital. Call Dr. Mills at Millbrook General. She'll confirm everything. We'll verify your identity through proper channels, Deputy Hastings said. Now turn back around and keep your hands on the vehicle. Dr. Crawford did as he was told. He watched the minutes tick by on his watch. 50 minutes since the initial call. 55. The surgery window was closing. Even if he left right now, even if he broke every speed limit, he might be too late. He thought about the girl on the operating table. Katie, they'd said her name was. 17 years old, someone's daughter, someone who had plans and dreams and a whole life ahead of her. He thought about the 317 people he'd saved. He thought about the people he hadn't saved, the ones who'd been too far gone by the time they reached him. How long is this going to take? He asked, trying to keep the desperation out of his voice. As long as it takes, Deputy Hastings replied. Deputy Kramer was walking around his car now, shining her flashlight through the windows. Looking for what? Weapons, drugs, evidence of a crime that didn't exist? Dr. Crawford had lived 42 years. He'd graduated top of his class from medical school. He'd published papers in prestigious journals. He'd given talks at conferences. He'd held dying people's brains in his hands and put them back together. He'd earned respect from colleagues all over the country. But here on the side of Highway 47, none of that mattered. Here, all these deputies saw was a black man in an expensive car. Everything else was suspicious. His credentials were suspect. His emergency was a lie. His very presence was a threat. The hospital is going to call my phone any minute, he said. When they do, will you please answer it? Will you please verify that I'm telling the truth? No response. Deputy Hastings was on his radio again, talking to someone. Deputy Kramer was still searching his car without permission, without a warrant, without any legal justification beyond the color of his skin. An hour had passed since the initial call. Dr. Crawford felt sick. Even if he left right now, the damage was probably done. Katie's brain had been bleeding for an hour. The pressure would have caused extensive damage. She might survive, but she might never be the same, and it was his fault. No, that wasn't right. It was their fault. These deputies who'd decided that their suspicions were more important than a child's life. His phone rang. It was inside the car, in the cup holder. Through the window, he could see the screen lighting up. Hospital, it said. That's them, Dr. Crawford said. That's the hospital calling. Please answer it. They'll verify everything. Deputy Hastings looked at the phone but made no move to get it. Please, Dr. Crawford said one more time. A girl is dying. The deputies exchanged a look. Something passed between them. Uncertainty, maybe. Or maybe they were starting to realize they'd made a mistake. Deputy Kramer picked up her radio. Dispatch, can you verify the identity of a Dr. James Crawford? Should be a neurosurgeon in the area. Finally, they were checking. Dr. Crawford waited, his heart pounding. Every second felt like an eternity. He watched the sun finish setting, watched the sky turn dark. He thought about Katie, alone in a hospital bed, her brain being destroyed minute by minute while he stood here helpless. The radio crackled. That's affirmative. Dr. James Crawford, neurosurgeon, licensed in this state. Currently employed at Oak Ridge Medical Center. Deputy Hastings' face went pale. Deputy Kramer's hand dropped from her radio. And dispatch? The voice on the radio continued. Millbrook General has been calling nonstop asking about his location. They have a critical patient waiting for him. The sheriff's daughter. The sheriff's daughter. Those words seemed to hit the deputies like a physical force. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Deputy Hastings stepped back from the car. His hand was shaking slightly as he pulled out Dr. Crawford's license and registration. Dr. Crawford stood by his car, watching the two deputies realize what they'd done. The color had drained from Deputy Hastings' face. Deputy Kramer looked like she might be sick. The radio silence stretched on, heavy with unspoken horror. You're free to go, Deputy Hastings finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. He held out the license and registration with a trembling hand. Dr. Crawford took his documents and got back in his car. His hands were shaking too, but for different reasons. He looked at his watch. 68 minutes since the initial call. 68 minutes of Katie's brain being crushed by blood and pressure. He started the engine and pulled back onto the highway. In his rearview mirror, he could see the two deputies standing by their cars, not moving. They looked like statues. Like people who'd just realized they'd made an irreversible mistake. Dr. Crawford pressed the accelerator to the floor. The speed limit didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except getting to that hospital. He dialed the hospital back, putting it on speaker. "Dr. Mills, it's James Crawford. I'm 10 minutes out. How's the patient?" There was a pause. When Dr. Mills spoke, her voice was strained. "Not good, James. She's deteriorating rapidly. Blood pressure's dropping. Intracranial pressure is through the roof. We've got her on every support we can manage, but I'll be there in 8 minutes. Prep the OR. I'm coming in hot." He disconnected and focused on the road. The sedan flew through the darkness, headlights cutting through the night. 8 minutes. He could do this. He had to do this. But a part of him, the part that had spent years studying brain trauma, knew the truth. 68 minutes was too long. Much too long. At this point, he wasn't racing to save a life. He was racing to maybe possibly preserve whatever was left. Behind him, on Highway 47, Deputy Hastings and Deputy Kramer were having a very different conversation. "What did we just do?" Kramer asked, her voice hollow. Hastings couldn't answer. He was staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. The sheriff's daughter. They'd stopped the surgeon who was supposed to save the sheriff's daughter. "We need to call it in," Kramer said, "and say what? That we detained a doctor for 43 minutes because we thought a black man in a nice car must be a criminal? That we ignored his emergency? That we might have just killed Sheriff Whitmore's kid?" Kramer's radio crackled. It was dispatch, and they didn't sound happy. "Deputy Kramer, Deputy Hastings. Sheriff Whitmore is asking for an explanation about the delay on Highway 47. He wants to know why Dr. Crawford was detained." The two deputies looked at each other. This was the moment. They could tell the truth and face the consequences, or they could try to minimize what happened. "Tell the sheriff it was a routine traffic stop," Hastings said into his radio. "The driver was speeding. We verified his identity and released him." "Copy that." But the radio silence that followed felt like judgment. Everyone at the station would hear this. Everyone would know. And in a town the size of Millbrook, everyone would have an opinion. "We should have let him go," Kramer said quietly. "He told us it was an emergency. He showed us his credentials. How were we supposed to know?" Hastings shot back, defensive now. "People lie all the time. We get fake doctors, fake lawyers, fake everything. We were doing our job. Were we? Or were we doing something else?" Hastings didn't answer. He got back in his cruiser and sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Deputy Kramer stood outside a moment longer, then got into her own vehicle. Neither of them moved for a long time. At Millbrook General, Sheriff Tom Whitmore was trying to process what his dispatcher had just told him. His deputies had stopped Dr. Crawford for speeding. For 43 minutes, it was a routine traffic stop, the dispatcher had said. But Tom Whitmore hadn't been sheriff for 23 years without learning to read between the lines. Routine traffic stops didn't take 43 minutes. Routine traffic stops didn't delay emergency medical personnel who'd clearly identified themselves. He thought about Deputy Hastings. Young, eager, sometimes too quick to see threats where there weren't any. He thought about Deputy Kramer, newer to the force, still learning. He thought about the conversations he'd overheard in the break room, the comments that made him uncomfortable, the jokes that weren't really jokes, and he thought about his daughter lying on a hospital bed, her life slipping away because his deputies had made a decision. Dr. Mills appeared beside him. "Tom, Dr. Crawford just called. He's 8 minutes out. 8 minutes. Tom nodded. 8 minutes and then they'd know. 8 minutes and then his daughter would either be saved or lost. "How is she?" he asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Holding on. Barely. Tom, I need you to understand something. Even when Dr. Crawford gets here, even if the surgery is successful, the delay has caused damage. Significant damage. I can't tell you how much until we get in there, but I understand," Tom said, cutting her off. He couldn't hear it, not yet. He needed to believe that Katie would be okay. That she'd wake up and be his little girl again. The minutes crawled by. Tom stood in the hallway watching the doors, waiting. Hospital staff moved around him, preparing for the surgery. The OR was ready. The surgical team was standing by. Everything was in place except the one person who mattered. Then the automatic doors burst open and Dr. Crawford ran in. He was a tall man, well-built, wearing what had probably been a nice suit before it got wrinkled from being pressed against a car. There were red marks on his wrists. Tom registered this detail distantly, not fully understanding what it meant. "Where is she?" Dr. Crawford asked. Dr. Mills pointed. "Trauma Bay 3. All the scans are uploaded to the OR system. We've got everything ready." Dr. Crawford didn't waste time with introductions. He went straight to Katie's bedside, his eyes moving over the monitors, reading the numbers, assessing. His face gave nothing away, but Tom saw his jaw tighten. "How long?" Dr. Crawford asked. 76 minutes since initial bleed was identified," Dr. Mills answered. Dr. Crawford nodded once. Then he looked at Tom for the first time. Their eyes met, and in that moment something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or shared grief over time that couldn't be recovered. "I'm going to do everything I can for your daughter," Dr. Crawford said. It wasn't a promise. Doctors didn't make promises, but it was a commitment. "I know," Tom said. Dr. Crawford turned and walked toward the surgical wing. Dr. Mills followed, already giving him more details about Katie's condition. Tom watched them go, then sank into a chair in the waiting area. That's when he noticed the red marks on his own wrists. No, wait. Those had been on Dr. Crawford's wrists. Tom replayed the image in his mind. Red marks. The kind you get from handcuffs. The realization hit him like a truck. His deputies hadn't just stopped Dr. Crawford for speeding. They'd cuffed him. They'd treated him like a criminal. While his daughter was dying, they'd handcuffed the man who was trying to save her. Tom stood up, walked to the hospital entrance, and went outside. The cool night air hit his face. He pulled out his phone and called the station. "This is Sheriff Whitmore. I need the dash cam footage from Deputy Hastings' traffic stop tonight. The one on Highway 47, and I need it now." "Yes, sir. I'll have it sent to your email." Tom hung up. He stood there in the parking lot, looking up at the stars, trying to understand how his world had fallen apart so completely in just over an hour. Inside, Dr. Crawford was scrubbing in. He'd done this thousands of times. The ritual was calming. Soap, water, brush. Clean your hands, clean your arms, clean your mind. Leave everything else outside the OR. But tonight was different. He could still feel the metal of the handcuffs on his wrists. Could still see the suspicion in Deputy Hastings' eyes. Could still hear his own voice begging them to let him go, to verify his identity, to understand that a child was dying. He dried his hands and let the surgical nurse help him into his gown and gloves. The OR was bright and cold. Katie was already on the table, her head positioned and prepped. The anesthesiologist gave him a nod. The surgical team was ready. Dr. Crawford looked at the scans one more time. The hemorrhage was massive. Blood had filled the subdural space, pressing on the brain tissue. 76 minutes of pressure. 76 minutes of damage. He thought about the 317 people he'd saved. He thought about the ones he hadn't saved. He thought about the ones who'd arrived too late. The ones whose brains had been too damaged. The ones whose families he'd had to face with the worst news imaginable. He picked up the scalpel. "Let's begin," he said. The next 90 minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. Dr. Crawford worked with precision born from years of practice. His hands moved automatically, following patterns burned into muscle memory. Incision, craniotomy, evacuation of the hematoma. Find the bleeder, cauterize it. Relieve the pressure. Save whatever brain tissue could be saved. But as he worked, he could see the damage. The brain tissue was swollen, discolored. Areas that should have been pink and healthy were gray and dying. The pressure had been too much for too long. He did everything he could. He repaired every vessel. He removed every clot. He worked with a desperation that surprised him, because he never let emotion into the OR. But this wasn't just patient 318. This was the girl who died while he stood handcuffed on the side of the road. After 90 minutes, he had to make a decision. He could keep working, trying to do more, trying to fix the unfixable, or he could close and accept that he'd done all that was humanly possible. He closed. In the waiting room, Tom Whitmore sat with his laptop open, watching dashcam footage. He watched Dr. Crawford get pulled over, watched him explain about the emergency, watched him show his credentials, watched Deputy Hastings order him out of the car. Watched the handcuffs go on, watched 43 minutes of his daughter's life tick away while his deputies decided whether a black doctor could really be a doctor. Tom closed the laptop. He felt something break inside him, something that he'd built over 23 years of wearing a badge, some belief that the system worked, that justice was blind, that the law protected everyone equally. Tom Whitmore closed his laptop but couldn't unsee what he'd just watched. The image of Dr. Crawford being handcuffed, his desperate pleas falling on deaf ears, would be burned into his mind forever. But right now he needed to focus. The doctor had been in surgery for 90 minutes. Any minute now someone would come through those doors with news about Katie. The waiting room had filled up over the past hour. Coach Henderson was there, still in her volleyball warm-up jacket. Some of Katie's teammates had arrived with their parents. Tom's younger brother had driven in from the next county. They all sat in that awful fluorescent lighting, drinking bad coffee, not knowing what to say. Tom's phone buzzed. It was a text from Deputy Hastings. "Sheriff, can we talk?" "It's important." Tom turned his phone face down on the chair beside him. He couldn't deal with that right now. Whatever Hastings had to say could wait. His daughter came first. She always came first. The surgical wing doors opened. Dr. Crawford emerged, still in his surgical scrub cap, his mask pulled down around his neck. His eyes found Tom's immediately. The surgeon's face was unreadable, professionally neutral, but there was something in his eyes. Something that made Tom's blood run cold. "Mr. Whitmore," Dr. Crawford said, then corrected himself. "Sheriff Whitmore, can we speak privately?" Tom stood up. His legs felt unsteady. He followed Dr. Crawford to a small consultation room off the main hallway. Dr. Mills was already there, waiting. That's when Tom knew. You didn't need two doctors for good news. They all sat down. Dr. Crawford leaned forward, his hands clasped together. He had the posture of someone about to deliver a blow and trying to make it as gentle as possible. "Your daughter is out of surgery," he began. The operation itself was technically successful. We evacuated the hematoma, stopped the bleeding, and relieved the pressure on her brain. Tom felt a tiny spark of hope. Technically successful. That meant she was alive. However, Dr. Crawford continued, and that one word extinguished the spark. The delay in getting her to surgery caused extensive damage. The blood pressed on her brain tissue for over 75 minutes before we could intervene. That's a very long time for this type of injury. "What does that mean?" Tom asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "It means that while Katie is alive, she's in a coma. We've relieved the pressure and stopped the bleeding. But the damage to her brain tissue is severe. We won't know the full extent until we see if she wakes up, and if she does wake up, what function she'll have." Tom heard the words, but they felt distant, like they were being said to someone else. "What are you telling me?" Dr. Mills reached over and put her hand on Tom's arm. Her eyes were wet. "Tom, Katie might not wake up. And if she does, she might not be the same girl you knew. The damage was extensive. Memory, motor function, personality, all of these could be affected." "You're saying she's brain damaged?" Tom said flatly. "We're saying the outcome is uncertain," Dr. Crawford said carefully. "Brains are remarkable organs. They can heal in ways we don't fully understand. But yes, there has been significant damage. If we'd been able to operate within the first 30 to 40 minutes, her prognosis would be very different." Tom looked at the doctor, at this man who'd raced to help, who'd been stopped by Tom's own deputies, who'd begged them to let him go while precious minutes slipped away. The red marks on his wrist suddenly made horrible sense. "The traffic stop," Tom said quietly. "My deputies handcuffed you." Dr. Crawford didn't respond immediately. He looked down at his hands, at the faint red lines still visible on his wrists. "Yes," he said simply. "For how long?" 43 minutes. The number hung in the air between them like an accusation. 43 minutes. Not quite enough time to save Katie. If Dr. Crawford had arrived even 20 minutes earlier, would it have made a difference? "I'm sorry," Dr. Crawford said. "I wish I could have gotten here sooner." "I wish," he trailed off. What was there to say? "I wish your deputies hadn't seen my skin color before they saw my medical degree." "This isn't your fault," Tom said, his voice rough. "You did everything you could. You broke speed limits to get here. You tried to explain you—" He couldn't finish, because the alternative was to admit whose fault it really was. Dr. Mills stood up. "Katie is being moved to the ICU. You can see her in about 20 minutes. Tom, I need you to prepare yourself. She's on a ventilator. She has monitors and tubes, and she looks very different from the girl you saw this morning." Tom nodded. He couldn't speak. Couldn't process that his daughter, who'd been so full of life just hours ago, was now a body in a hospital bed kept alive by machines. "Is there anything else we can do?" he finally managed to ask. "We wait," Dr. Crawford said. "We keep her stable, monitor for complications, and wait to see if she wakes up. Brain injuries are unpredictable. Some patients wake up quickly. Some take days or weeks. Some—" He didn't finish that sentence either. Tom stood up. He wanted to say thank you. Wanted to say something to acknowledge that this doctor had tried his best, had fought to save his daughter despite being treated like a criminal. But the words wouldn't come. Dr. Crawford stood as well. "I'll be monitoring her closely. If anything changes, if there's any sign of improvement or any complications, I'll come find you immediately." Tom nodded and left the room. The hallway seemed longer than before. He walked back to the waiting area where everyone was sitting, staring at him, waiting for news. "She's alive," he said. "She's in a coma. We don't know if she'll wake up." Coach Henderson started crying. Katie's teammates hugged each other. Tom's brother came over and put his arm around Tom's shoulders, but Tom barely felt it. He was numb. Completely numb. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Deputy Hastings. "Sheriff, please. We need to explain what happened." Tom stared at the text. "Explain what happened." As if there was any explanation that could justify 43 minutes. As if there was any words that could undo what they'd done. He typed back, "Stay away from the hospital. That's an order." 20 minutes later, a nurse came to get him. Tom followed her through the ICU doors, down a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and fear. She stopped at room 7. "Take your time," she said gently. Tom walked in and felt his heart shatter. Katie looked so small in that hospital bed. Tubes ran from her arms, her chest, her mouth. Machines beeped and hummed around her. Her head was wrapped in bandages. Her face was swollen, but it was still his daughter. Still his little girl. He sat down in the chair beside her bed and took her hand. It was warm but unresponsive. He squeezed it gently, hoping for any sign of recognition. Nothing. "I'm here, baby girl," he whispered. "Dad's here. You're going to be okay. You have to be okay." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. Nothing was okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. The hours blurred together. Tom sat by Katie's bedside watching the monitors, listening to the ventilator breathe for her. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting medication, offering sympathetic looks. Dr. Crawford stopped by twice to examine Katie, his face carefully neutral as he checked her pupils, her reflexes, her brain activity. "Any change?" Tom asked each time. "No change," Dr. Crawford answered. "But it's still early. The brain needs time. Time." They kept talking about time, as if time was something that could be measured in minutes and hours. As if time hadn't already stolen his daughter from him. Around midnight, Tom's phone rang. It was the station. He almost didn't answer, but old habits died hard. "Sheriff, we have a situation. Deputy Hastings and Deputy Kramer are asking to see you. They're saying they have information about tonight's incident that you need to hear. Tell them I'm unavailable." "Sir, they're saying it's important. They want to make a statement." Tom closed his eyes. A statement. Now they wanted to make a statement. Now they wanted to explain themselves. Where was that urgency when Dr. Crawford was begging them to verify his identity? "Fine. Tell them to write it up and submit it through proper channels. I'll review it when I'm ready." "Yes, sir." Tom hung up. He looked at his daughter, at the machines keeping her alive. Keeping her technically alive anyway. Was she really in there? Was Katie still Katie, somewhere behind those closed eyes? Or had 43 minutes on the side of Highway 47 already taken her from him? Dr. Mills came in around 1 in the morning. She looked exhausted. She'd probably been on shift for 16 hours. "You should go home, Tom, get some rest. We'll call if anything changes." "I can't leave her. She's stable. She's getting excellent care. You being here exhausted won't help her." Tom knew she was right, but the thought of leaving Katie alone in this hospital room, surrounded by machines instead of people who loved her, was unbearable. "I'll stay a little longer," he said. Dr. Mills nodded and left. Tom sat in the dim light of the ICU room, holding his daughter's hand, listening to the mechanical breathing of the ventilator. He thought about Katie's college applications, her dreams of becoming a lawyer. The way she'd argued with him about social justice, about police reform, about equality. She'd been so passionate, so convinced she could change the world, and now she might never wake up. Might never argue with him again. Might never change anything. Because of a traffic stop. Because 2 deputies saw a black man in a nice car and decided he must be a criminal. Because prejudice was more powerful than a dying girl's need for a surgeon. Tom looked at his badge, clipped to his belt. He'd worn it with pride for 23 years. Had believed it meant something, justice, protection, service. But tonight that badge had killed his daughter. Not literally, of course. He hadn't been on Highway 47, but he'd hired those deputies. He'd trained them, or failed to train them. He'd created an environment where a traffic stop could take 43 minutes because the driver's skin color made them suspicious. The badge didn't mean what he thought it meant. Maybe it never had. Around 3 a.m, Dr. Crawford came back. He looked tired. He'd probably been up for 20 hours straight. "Any change?" Tom asked, already knowing the answer. "No change. But Tom, I need to tell you something." Dr. Crawford sat down in the chair across from Tom. He looked exhausted, but there was something else in his eyes, something Tom couldn't quite read. "When I was in medical school," Dr. Crawford began, "I got pulled over 14 times in 2 years. I wasn't speeding, wasn't breaking any laws. I was just driving while black in a nice neighborhood. Each time I'd explain that I was a medical student. Each time they'd run my license, search my car, make me wait. Nothing ever came of it because there was nothing to find. But those stops taught me something important." Tom listened, his hand still holding Katie's. "They taught me that no matter how educated I became, no matter how many degrees I earned or lives I saved, some people would always see my skin before they saw anything else. Tonight wasn't the first time I've been handcuffed during a traffic stop. It probably won't be the last, but it was the first time someone died because of it." "Katie's not dead," Tom said quietly. Dr. Crawford looked at the monitors, at the flat line showing minimal brain activity. "No, she's not dead, but she's not alive either. Not really. Tom, I need to be honest with you. The brain activity we're seeing is extremely low. The damage was catastrophic. Even if she wakes up, and that's a big if, she won't be the girl you knew." Tom felt tears burning his eyes. "You're saying I should give up on her. I'm saying you should prepare yourself for all possibilities, including the possibility that Katie is already gone, and her body just hasn't realized it yet." The words were brutal. But Tom appreciated the honesty. He'd spent his career dealing in hard truths. He deserved to hear them now. "How long do we wait?" he asked. "We give her 72 hours. If there's no improvement in brain activity by then, we'll need to have a different conversation." 72 hours. 3 days to see if his daughter would come back to him. Dr. Crawford stood. "I'm going home for a few hours, but I'll be back in the morning. If anything changes before then, they'll call me." "Dr. Crawford," Tom said. The surgeon paused at the door. "Thank you. For trying. For being willing to come here despite everything. I'm sorry about what my deputies did to you." Dr. Crawford nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, but your apology doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring Katie back. And it doesn't fix a system that's been broken for a very long time." He left. Tom sat alone with his daughter and the machines. The next 3 days were the longest of Tom's life. He barely left Katie's side. His brother brought him food that he didn't eat. Friends from the department came by, offering support that felt hollow. How could they support him when it was their own system that had done this? Deputy Hastings and Deputy Kramer had both submitted written statements. Tom forced himself to read them. They were nearly identical, clearly coordinated. They claimed they had no way of knowing Dr. Crawford was really a doctor. They said he'd been acting suspicious. They said they were following protocol. Protocol. As if there was a protocol that justified handcuffing an emergency medical professional for 43 minutes. Tom forwarded the statements to Internal Affairs without comment. Let them investigate. Let them determine if policies were followed. Tom already knew the truth. The policies themselves were the problem. On the second day, News of what happened started spreading through Millbrook. Social media lit up with the story. Sheriff's daughter dying while deputies detained the black surgeon trying to save her. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The black community in Millbrook, which had been dealing with aggressive policing for years, watched carefully. They'd seen this play out before, just with different victims. The difference was that this time the victim was white. This time the victim was the sheriff's daughter. Would that make justice more likely or less? Representatives from the NAACP called. Civil rights attorneys offered their services. The national media started picking up the story. Tom's phone rang constantly. He ignored it all. His focus was on Katie, on the monitors that showed no change, on the hope that was dying a little more each hour. On the third day, Dr. Crawford came to Tom with the news he'd been dreading. "There's no improvement," the doctor said gently. "No brain activity beyond the basic stem function keeping her organs working. Tom, I think it's time we discuss what comes next." Tom looked at his daughter. She looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. But she wasn't sleeping. She was gone. Had been gone since that first hour, while she lay on the operating table with a brain that had been crushed and damaged beyond repair. "What are my options?" Tom asked. "We can keep her on life support indefinitely. Her body will continue functioning as long as the machines do their job. But Katie, the person you knew, is gone. Or," Dr. Crawford paused, "we can remove life support and let her go. If you choose that option, we can donate her organs. Her heart, lungs, kidneys, liver. They're all healthy. She could save multiple lives. Save lives." Katie had wanted to save lives. Wanted to be a lawyer who fought for justice, who helped people who couldn't help themselves. Organ donation seemed like something she would have wanted. "How long do I have to decide?" Tom asked. "Take the time you need, but Tom, the longer we wait, the harder it becomes for you and for Katie." Tom nodded. After Dr. Crawford left, he sat with Katie for a long time. He talked to her, told her about the volleyball game he'd watched her play last week, reminded her of the time she was 7 and tried to adopt every stray cat in the neighborhood. He apologized for not being there when she collapsed, apologized for the system he'd been part of that had failed her so completely, and then he made the decision. That evening, Tom called his brother, Katie's coach, her closest friends. He asked them to come say goodbye. They filled Katie's room crying, touching her hand, whispering things they wished they'd said when she could hear them. Tom stood by the window watching the sunset, orange and purple, just like it had been 3 days ago when Dr. Crawford had been racing to save her. So much had changed. Everything had changed. The next morning, they removed Katie from life support. Tom held her hand as the machines were turned off, as the ventilator stopped breathing for her. Her heart kept beating for a few minutes on its own, then gradually slowed. At 11:47 a.m., Katie Whitmore was declared dead. She was 17 years old. She'd been dead for 3 days, but her body had only just caught up to the truth. The organ donation team moved quickly. Katie's heart went to a 40-year-old man in the next state. Her lung saved a teenage boy with cystic fibrosis. Her kidneys, liver, corneas all went to people who desperately needed them. In death, Katie saved 6 lives. It was cold comfort, but it was something. The funeral was held 4 days later. The church was packed. Katie's classmates wore their volleyball jerseys. Teachers spoke about her potential. Friends shared stories that made people laugh and cry. Tom sat in the front row, numb, barely hearing any of it. What he did hear was the whisper of conversation outside the church after the service. People talking about the traffic stop, about deputies Hastings and Kramer, about what should happen to them. The internal affairs investigation concluded 2 weeks later. It found that both deputies had followed proper procedures for a traffic stop. They'd verified the driver's identity, checked for warrants, ensured the vehicle wasn't stolen. The fact that it had taken 43 minutes was unfortunate, the report said, but not technically a violation of policy. Tom read the report in his office. Then he put it down, removed his badge, and walked to the county commissioner's office. He submitted his resignation effective immediately. "Tom, you don't have to do this," Commissioner Williams said. "What happened was tragic, but it wasn't your fault.